So I'm happy to have you here with me today.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be with you too.
And I'm so excited because you are such a delight to have a conversation with. And I'm excited for people to get to know you better. I'm excited for me to get to know you better. There's things about you I don't know, and there's some stories I want to hear.
Yeah. And I want to hear yours. So then you get to have an interview.
Well, okay, sure.
Okay.
It's a conversation.
Yes.
Okay. So to begin with, I just want to hear a little bit about you have 3 children, right?
Yeah.
Chris, Amy, and
Katie.
Mm-hmm. And they're like in their 40s, right?
Well, let's see. Chris will be 40 in October.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. 82 is his birthday. Okay. 1982. And then 86 was Amy. So she's actually 36. Just turned in April.
So they're 36. A little younger than I thought.
And then Katie is 32.
Oh, wow. So they're in their 30s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are each of them like?
Oh, they're so different. You know, I homeschooled them, and they were so different, each one. And so Chris is very intellectual, very deep thinker, and analyzes everything, very detail oriented. So he would be sitting like this, and I'd say, "Chris, get to work." He goes, "I am working."
Because he's thinking.
Yes, and he could just write the answer in math. Just write it down.
Just write it down because he's so bright.
You've got to prove it.
Yeah.
He just is amazing in all those things. Yeah. So anyway, let's see. Well, Chris is a leader. He's a very charismatic leader. Just very creative. And I think because when we grew with our kids, we always had houses that were fixer-uppers. So Chris was right alongside Bob doing electrical, doing sheetrock, doing everything, destruction and building and planning. And so he learned all that. And so he loves being creative.
Okay. So that's Chris.
That's a huge strength. Amy was the easiest. Chris was difficult because he's very strong-willed.
Because he's strong-willed and he's smart.
You had to channel him to go on and do his passion, and he did. Anyway, but Amy, very mellow, but just so sweet. And, she's just kind of got us wrapped around her finger. Anything Amy wants, because she's just, but yeah, she's a super, also a very hard worker, super hard worker. We went through a stage, like you had mentioned, the cancer and stuff. We went through a period where money dried up because Bob had lost his job and I was homeschooling. So then I found a job.
Okay.
And I was able to, it was just a miracle really, because I'd been out of the teaching force for I'm a teacher. And so I'd been teaching high school before this. And then when we moved to Chicago, Bob got, it was actually already stage 3, maybe it was 4. I don't know. It was but it was, the doctor said, well, 50% chance you'll live 5 years. But we didn't tell the kids. But we did go to the church and have the pastor lay hands and anoint him with oil and pray over him. And we just had a peace. Bob had the peace. I was more the wreck. But still, God provided.
Understandably.
Yeah, because just before that diagnosis, his job had ended. So we didn't have insurance. And so it was, well, what do we do? So we liquidated all our money, to pay for him to have medical care.
You got to do what you got to do.
So we didn't have insurance for the rest of us. But then I went to the county college there and got a job. It was a miracle. And the guy was so nice, this dean, and he gave me as many classes as I could handle. And I said, well, so he gave me 6. He said, usually and he'd only hire me adjunct, so I wasn't getting insurance.
Okay.
But I said, as many as you'll give me. And so I did all the German. I'm a German teacher, so I did.
Yeah, you're a dual language teacher, right? German and Spanish, right?
Little English. Yeah. So the classes I taught there, I taught all the German. And so it was first year, second year. I mean, they have like first semester, 2 years at a county college. So it's 4 semesters. And then I taught Bonehead English, which was so the kids who had tried to enter in but didn't have English skills. So I'd get their English up to snuff to pass tests to get, to be able to do reading and writing. And then I did special ed, was my other degree, was in master's in special ed.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Now, but before we get into that, you've talked about Amy and you've talked about Chris.
Sorry. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Amy. So the bottom line was that started because of that, the kids, and Amy at that time was with the cancer. Chris was already in college.
Okay.
And Amy was like 15. And Katie
what year
was like
this?
12. Goodness.
Roughly. Mid-80s, I'm thinking. Because you got married in 1980.
Yeah. You're
Okay.
right. Golly, I don't remember the year.
Well, if he's in college, so it had to be in the 90s at least.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, anyway, so bottom line is the kids, we had no money, to give them things or, I mean, and a
Mhm.
lot of kids their age, parents were giving them cell phones, giving them cars, and we just didn't have it. I hope they understand that we would have loved to have, given more to them, but right then we didn't have it. Just makes me cry. But anyway, they were such hard workers, they worked, they always worked. And so Amy started at, like 15, Katie as well. I mean, they were always babysitting. They were always, and then she'd get jobs at anything. Cafe Luna was one of hers, But anyway, she was always working really hard, and they always bought their own cell phones. They paid their own insurance. They paid their own gas.
Hard workers,
Very hard,
self-sufficient.
and,
Yeah.
because really we didn't have the extra. It all went to doctors and mortgage.
So that's
And I don't know if-
Amy.
that was Amy. Anyway, but Amy, her desire from 5 years old was to be a dentist.
From
From
5.
5.
And so she's now
And
she's
she
now
is
a dentist.
Yes, she is.
Wow.
And it was so funny because we called her the extractor, because Katie, who's like 2.5 years younger than her, Amy, they had bunk beds, so Amy'd be on the top with Katie. Amy had it all set up with like, Q-tips and a washcloth and little prizes. She'd put the washcloth on
my
Katie's
God.
head, and then she would wiggle those teeth and extract them.
Wow.
They were not ready.
Oh no! But she's like, nope, they're coming out.
And Amy was, if you're good, you get a prize. And, but anyway, it's just so funny. So she has always had that.
Always do what you wanted.
Always. And, she did it. She did it 100%. Just super hard worker.
Now, what about Katie?
Katie is also hugely determined. She has, her first email was, "Can't stop Katie."
Oh, wow.
She is a go-getter. So like with the homeschooling, Amy and Chris would like to get up a little later. Like we would start school about 9. Katie would get up at 6. And we were organized and had it, and she would just zoop right through her work. She was done by noon.
Wow.
So she would have the day free, and it was like, na, 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 na. You know what I mean? But anyway, no, she is a go-getter, and same deal. I mean, just always worked. And so so by the time we moved back to Oregon, she went to PSU.
Okay.
She put herself through and paid for all of it and
Wow.
came out debt-free.
You got amazing kids.
I really do. And she's super creative. She's an artist. She paints. Amy has that dexterity of a dentist. She makes amazing jewelry, can crochet, and I don't do any of these things. I just try to expose them to them so they could learn them.
Yeah.
And kind people would kind of take them underhand and show them things. Like we did 4-H with them, all 3. We were the naughty knitters. Chris was great at knitting. Amy and Katie she wanted to go. She was on the go, so she didn't knit. No, but
can't stop Katie.
Nope, can't stop Katie. and then we did bunny rabbits, and those were called what was it? Anyway, we always had weird names. But anyway, so they all had bunnies and took care of them, and But anyway, bottom line is they were all very active, and I made sure that they just had exposure.
And they're
to
the
things.
joy of your life. Them and Will.
Oh yes, Amy has a little boy named Will. He's 3 now, but we were thankful enough and I mean fortunate enough to be able to take care of him when he was little. So now he's in preschool full time, so we won't be doing that. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, so now but.
So let's see. You grew up. You were born in South Dakota.
I was born in Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha.
And when I was 5, we moved to Brookings, South Dakota.
Right.
So I was raised in Brookings, South Dakota, which is the southeastern
South Dakota.
edge. South Dakota. Yeah. Everyone. And very strong Norwegian.
Very strong Norwegian.
And German area.
Interesting.
That's where I got exposed to German.
So did you speak a little German before? No, not at all. You just had a desire. You liked it.
Because you know what? I met German people and they were wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, when culture shines through someone, I just love different cultures. And I love it anyway, that they maintain that culture. So anyway, there was a strong Mennonite community there. And I also started working really early. And when I was 11, I guess they didn't have child labor laws then. I worked at A&W's car hop.
Oh my goodness!
And then very soon after that, I got into being a checker at a grocery store.
Okay.
So I got to.
Anyway, then you went to college. Where'd you go to college?
First year, SDSU, South Dakota State
right,
University.
And then you went to Eugene, right?
When I went to Eugene, it was fun because didn't have the money for that. In our family, you know, my mom was kind of, I'd say, way ahead of her time. As a woman, mom worked full time. Always, she was a nurse, like for 50 years.
Yeah.
And she said to all of us kids, "You get a career because you never know. You cannot depend on anyone to take care of you." I'm so glad she did that.
Yeah. Even though
And
Bob has taken care of you,
oh
but
yeah, but I'm saying there
still,
was a time there where, you know what, it stopped, and you just have to be ready
yeah,
to and that way I had the credentials. I
Yeah.
could jump into something.
right.
And but anyway, but it was, you know, but she wanted us to find something we loved because she loved nursing.
hmm
And so she, interestingly, you know, so she grew up speaking Norwegian at home in North Dakota.
Interesting.
Yeah. But then, so she had a Norwegian grandma that came over from Norway that only spoke Norwegian, never spoke English. She gave because mom in North Dakota, they were on a farm, and mom was expected to marry a Lutheran Norwegian farmer and stay on the farm. And mom did not want to. She wanted to be a nurse. So,
She was an independent
oh
girl.
boy, see, this is huge. And so then this Norwegian grandma gave her $25 to go to nursing school in Minot, North Dakota. They didn't have electricity or running water or a car. I mean, you know, people, we think everybody's always been very affluent. They were
No, that's
not.
pretty recent.
They had very rough time, and
Yeah.
it was considered how, you know, you have to do this. I mean, there's no choice. There's no, but here, this grandma said, "You do it." So she gave mom that money, and she went to Minot and became a nurse. And then she was an Air Force nurse.
Oh,
They
my.
called it Army Air Force, I think. Army. Anyway, mom always corrected me. But anyway, that's how she met my dad, was because he was in Air Force. They both were in World War II, and he was a bombardier. And so he was a pilot, and she was an Air Force nurse. So they were both officers, you know.
Now
Anyway.
you went to school in Eugene, and he tells me that it was like 1978 when you two met, because you had to go get a car stereo.
Yes. Okay, well, let's see. So I was at South Dakota State University, because that's in-state tuition.
Okay.
And my dad was a professor there. So, I mean, it was kind of like, well, this is the no-brainer. Live at home, you know, because there wasn't money. Bob, my dad was sick at the time, so he was not working. And mom, so here at this case, mom was the one working and keeping everything going. And okay, so you asked me.
I asked about how did you meet Bob?
So I had put in at South Dakota State University because I had a high GPA, and my major was German.
Okay.
And and I looked at schools, and they had this thing called NSE, National Exchange, NSE, National Student Exchange. So you could go 1 year in state tuition at another school. And I looked for a school that was high in German, you know, had language. And University of Oregon came up. Also Hawaii. Hawaii was my first choice, but I got Oregon. And it was like heaven. I couldn't believe it. And I remember way back, my grandma my mom's mom showing me a postcard, black and white, of the gorge. And she said, "Terri, this is God's country." And so there I thought, okay. I really didn't know anything about Oregon.
Yeah.
Nothing, except I knew I wanted to see the ocean. That was because
you've never seen
South Dakota, you're landlocked.
Yeah, there's no ocean.
No, I mean, not even very many lakes there. I mean, they're reservoirs.
So
so
you go there.
So I go to U of O. That was 76. And so after that 1 year, you know, what I decided to do then was just quit school and get residency. And I went in for my interview, my like exit interview, to say, well, I'll be coming back. And it was my birthday, actually, September. And then I don't know what he was, some administrator. And he said, "Oh, you're from Brookings?" "Not Brookings, Oregon." I said, No, Brookings, South Dakota." He goes, "Oh, how do you like it here?" And I said, "I plan to get residency and stay, and then I can come back and finish my degrees. I wanted to continue on with masters." And he says, "Well, happy birthday."
Oh.
And he gave me residency.
Oh, that day.
That day. And then I thought, uh-oh, is this okay? But anyway, it worked out.
It worked out.
So after that, you know, I still, you know, so at that point I didn't have a car, and my mom said, "Here, I'll give you this car." It was my dad's sister's, and she passed, and they had 3 cars, and dad didn't drive anymore. So here, have a car. So I got this car, but it only had a radio. So I went to Payless and got an 8-track.
Oh
And
my.
it broke on my first CD or whatever you think you put it.
8-track.
8-track. So then I went to a garage, because that's what you do in South Dakota. You go to garages and they tell you, they are so wise and they know how to fix everything. I went to a garage and said, where can I get my 8-track fixed? And they said, lady, you don't do that here. Just go, here's a car stereo store, and go there and talk to them about it. So I thought, oh, okay. So, and that was Bob's store. He owned it. It was called
Right.
Hear No Evil.
Right.
So I
I've been to
walked
them.
in. Yeah, there's still one in Salem.
That's the one I went to.
Yeah. This was the first one, and it was in Eugene. So I walked in and I looked around, and the prices were horrible. I mean, I was used to, like, I spent $19 for that car, for that radio, for
And
that.
these were nice quality.
These were like $300-400.
Yeah.
And so I was walking out the door, and Bob had another partner. It wasn't very ethical, because he just, I don't think he really had the brains for being a great businessman. I don't think he kept track of, how you make a business successful. But anyway, Bob was more the businessman.
Okay.
And the guy had pounded on the door and said, I need help. The showroom's full. Come out. And I was just about to leave, and here comes Bob. It's like, ta-da! So Bob comes out. Can I help you? And I said, well, I have an 8-track I want you to fix.
Yeah.
So I took him out to my car. I always name my cars, and he did too. His car was Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah.
And my car was Bertha.
Okay.
Because it was, my mom was Bertha. And anyway, so I showed him my car and an 8-track, and he goes, there's no hope for this. He goes, but let me show you some. We have some that aren't so, so at that point. And you know what I just liked is he wasn't a schmoozer, like a flirt. He was more just like educational,
Okay.
which I really liked. I really wasn't into any dating or anything.
He wasn't either. He hadn't thought about anything.
No, he was into making this business go. He had put everything into it.
Yeah.
And I was more like, I'm excited.
So you weren't interested in him at all that day.
No.
He said it was love at first sight.
Well, you know what? It was so funny. Right away, I liked him. And right away, we just were able to talk. And you know what? And so the deal is, so I made sure, I thought, I really can't afford this stereo, but I'm going to buy it so he gets my phone number.
So it really was. You were interested. You went in there.
So girls back then did not like, can you go out? They didn't ask the guy.
No, they don't do that.
And I would not have given him my number.
But
if I bought the stereo, he'd get my number.
And did he call you?
And he called me that night. And I taught German at home. I was always teaching. So I always took because I was an advanced student. I was in the upperclassmen.
Yeah.
So I taught the beginners, So they were all in my home. So I thought it was one of my students. So, Guten Abend, wie geht's? And he does know a little bit of German. So he said, Guten Abend, and then he stopped. But then we made a date, and did he tell you what happened?
No.
So again, I'm always tutoring. This was a kid I tutored in English. He was from Brazil. Okay. Anyway, and he lived with it was so sad. He was from Brazil. And if you know about the culture in Brazil, I mean, they love to dance, and they're, they love life. And he was living with a family that went to bed at 8 o'clock.
Oh no.
He hadn't been and done anything. So here I was tutoring him in English, and I said, well, I'd like to take you out for a pizza. Oh, and so I went and took him out for a pizza. And that was the night I was supposed to go on a date with Bob.
Oops.
Totally forgot. And then, of course, I lost my car. So at this point, I had so much fun. He was 16 and I was 19. And I thought, wow, I can't find my car. So he and I had to find the car, Bertha. Found it. I brought him home. And, anyway, actually I ended up taking him to South Dakota. We did a road trip so he could see all of the states on a road trip. It was he became like a little brother. So bottom line, I came home and it was probably midnight. And my roommate, and it was it wasn't really a friend roommate. It was more of just
a roommate. Yeah.
This Bob Pitzer has been, no cell phones, remember?
Right.
This Bob Pitzer has been calling you every 15 minutes. I thought, oh, that's right. So then I called him back and said, I'm so sorry, I forgot. And then I lost my car. And then I had to, and he was like, fine. So let's go out tomorrow night. And he says, well, what are you doing tomorrow night? I said, well, I jog. I used to jog. Bob was not a jogger. But no. He said, oh, that sounds great. Let's go jog.
And he's not a jogger.
No. So he Where should we meet? Okay, I'll meet you at the store, his store. He got off at 5 or whatever. So we met at 5 and started running, and Bob was running. And then after 1 block, oh, let's walk. that was the extent of our jogging date there.
So then you just walked.
Yeah, then we
and
just
talked.
walked and talked and found out all about each other. And yeah, so no, I mean, really, pretty much since then, it was just he and I were together all the time. Yeah, he's a very good listener. You know, and I mean, he's just a super patient, and like I said, that educator mind. He loves anything.
Loves
he just
to
loves to
learn.
learn.
He
He's
does.
always, and it was just fun to talk everything, you know. But yeah, so
But
I mean,
you weren't a Christian at that point. Neither of you were.
No.
That came later. How did you come to faith? And then I know there's a little bit of a story of how you encouraged his faith. So
well, let's see. He
how did you come to faith?
well, so he and I, let's see, we got married then in 1980, and so when I was 22 then, and he was almost 30. So and then you know, we both wanted kids, so and I had a job then. I also had been just hired at Thurston High School to teach German. I taught German and Spanish.
Okay.
At the high school.
Yeah.
And then also at the middle school, so I commuted between 2 schools. And so, but anyway, so I was able to. I worked there like 3 years, and then we had Chris, and so I was able to get a 1 year off I got a person to take, you know, 1 year maternity leave. And so we were sitting, and I, you know, because first year, second year, third year German, then I had to get another teacher to do Spanish. So I was meeting with all these teachers to have them take over my job for a year. And I was meeting with this lady, and at that time, Bob and I, you know, he was very headlong into making this business work. And after about a year after our marriage, it went under, and it ended up that he went to the doctor. He wasn't feeling well, and his blood pressure was really high. And the doctor said, "Whatever you are doing, stop." And you know, it was just that, you know, they had a very high overhead. They kept growing and growing without really, and they were paying exorbitant wages and just hiring. They weren't on top of it, and Bob would try to corral the other 2 men, and they just one was embezzling, and one had a cocaine addict. You know what I mean? It just wasn't going to work. So Bob got out of it and left them with it. But at this point, then anyway, there's more to that story. But bottom line, so I forget where I am.
How did you become a believer?
Okay, so Bob was at this point trying real hard to just be a rep. Now he was on the road, so he would be gone all week. And you know, I mean, it was just not a good formula for our marriage. Things were not going well because, you know, I mean, his dreams had fallen. It was like losing a child when he lost that business. My job was exhausting, and I was still taking classes too, because you have to update everything always. I mean, we were just burning it at both ends, work. And then now a child, you know, 100%, every little problem is going to be huge. And just the communication wasn't there. We've had to really learn to communicate. So at that point, I told this lady who was going to take over my job, I said, well, I know, you know, teaching jobs are hard to get, especially in Eugene, in Oregon, because I mean, the competition is huge. And I said, I know that you really want this job, but you're just going to be exhausted. You're going to be so exhausted. And she says, but do you know Jesus? And I thought, well, of course I know Jesus. I'm a Lutheran. I'm a confirmed Lutheran.
Reminds me of Kathy's conversation. Like, are you a Christian? Well, I'm a Lutheran.
I know. But so we did.
That's not the question.
Yeah. But you know, I had no relationship with God. And but at that point, she just took me under her wing. It wasn't like, oh, you don't, you know, she just was saying, you know, there's hope for your, but I shared with her, things are just falling apart, and I don't know what else to do besides just work. And she was saying, well, you know, Jesus will help you. And so we and then she gave me a tract. And I mean, you know, God calls you. And I can think back now to many, many times at University of Oregon, there were believers that had reached out to me. And that made a difference, because they just shined like they were different. They were servants, they were loving, they were caring, they were compassionate. And those were the people, I just kept, oh wow. But no, I was too stubborn, and I got to do it myself. And I really had, I had 5-year plans, 10-year plans. I had everything planned out. I thought I'm in control, and then I realized through this marriage and through having a baby, I had this thing, okay, if I get a degree, and then if I get another degree, and then I get a house, and then I get marriage, and then I get a car, and then I get a kid, then I'll be happy. Well, you'll get exhausted because there'll always be the next thing you got to get,
Yeah.
So I was realizing, I can't do this anymore. I just can't.
Yeah.
And so I went home and prayed and started, she started taking me to church and gave me a Bible, and I just started ravenously reading the Bible and listening to what few Christian music there was back then.
There was Christian music back then.
Because that was in 82.
That's what I was going to say. This is 82. Okay.
Yes.
And what
Bob
groups
was
did you listen
not
to?
happy.
What groups did you listen to?
There was that Michael Smith.
Michael W. Smith?
Yeah, Michael W. Smith. It was very gospel oriented.
Yeah.
I just
Probably
really
second
loved the
chapter of
message.
Acts, or maybe Petra, or
Yeah, Petra was one of
yeah,
them.
yeah.
But just very soothing
Mhm.
but anyway, she just poured into me that, and I love her. And it was Linda Saltmarsh. I've got to get a hold of her because it's. But anyway, she and their husband, and they all just
They loved on you and supported you.
Mhm.
And Bob did not like this.
No, he said, you are a Bible thumper. But you know what? See, Bob, I knew him well enough to know if I just kept reading and I'd leave the Bible open to where I was reading, he would look at it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Quiet.
Yes.
Not
But
too
then-
pushy.
No, but then, so about 6 months later, Bob said, okay, I'll go to church, but it has to be a Catholic church. And then
Because he was Catholic.
because he was raised Catholic, and we were married in a Catholic church. And then, but what ended up happening, it ended up that, we didn't find a Catholic church that he liked right near us. So there was a Lutheran church, and they're almost identical.
They're almost identical.
It was he said, this could be a Lutheran church. He said, this could be a Catholic church, except we are not kneeling. And we aren't doing the signs of the cross. And
But they're
he
very
loved the
similar.
guy. He loved the guy, and they were great, but really they weren't really great into Bible teaching.
Yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, and so we went there quite a while. They were very Lutheran, and we had great potlucks, and that was really the bottom line.
All
in that.
right.
So, but then God moved us to a different house in Eugene, which was on the other side, and because we had a teeny 800 square foot house that included the garage.
Wow, that's tiny.
Tiny. And so then we decided, but then at that point the market crashed. So I said, I'm going to go look. And I found one, and it was like 60,000. And we hung on to the old house and rented it, and then got this one. So I'm still working, and Bob is still doing this rep thing. And so we get this other house, and, but anyway, so but the thing is, God put us right next to strong believers. And and our kids were the same age. And it was huge. It was huge. And so anyway, but she would, and her name was Kathy Laughlin, and they were missionaries in Ireland, but she invited the kids to Awana.
Huh.
And they started going. And so I started getting discipled through Awana, through my kids going to Awana. Because you learn scripture and talk, and it was just so great. Like, first, for all of sin and fall short of the glory of God.
Believe, concede, confess,
yeah.
right?
Oh, it was just great. Plus, they just had so much fun, and they were getting to know all these kids, and they were, So anyway, that's how it kind of grew from there.
For you.
For
Now,
you.
it took you years later when you moved up here to Portland area, right? Before Bob came to faith, right?
Yeah. So then, Bob, he got out of the job being a rep, and he decided he would go to Fred Meyer.
Right.
But you have to pay your dues. So for 3 years, he was they call it a PIC, person in charge. He was a manager, and they moved him around in Eugene. Okay. Finally, and he and I both said, we'll do it 3 years and then done. Because he was always working nights and weekends, gone all the time. And at that point, I had found another new Lutheran church. Lutheran. So, we weren't really growing except through Awana.
But through Awana.
So anyway, Bob finally got a buyer position as a buyer for Fred Meyer. So we moved from Eugene up to Portland, but we moved to Beaverton,
Right.
another fixer-upper house that was a wreck. But anyway, at that point, God put us right next to a great church, Southwest Hills.
Southwest Hills.
And I started, and Bob said then at that point now he's working days. So he said, and he's not working weekends. Because I was always going to the church alone because he worked weekends. Now he's going to be home on the weekend. And he said, I will go to a Catholic church with you. So we started going to this Catholic church in Beaverton. And finally we did that. But then I still went to where there was an Awana church. And I went to that which was Southwest Hills. So anyway, bottom line, I ended up, I'd go with Bob at 8 to Mass. And then I'd go to the other church at its second service, like
11 or 7,
yeah,
like that.
Yeah. And then, so that went on for at least a year. And then Bob looked at me one day after Mass and said, I didn't get a thing out of that. Did you? And I said, well,
nope.
And he goes, well, I'll try your church. But he was kind of like defensive. I'll try your church. And I said, well, let me tell you. First, everyone carries a Bible.
They do there.
They do. And it was a teaching church. So I said, and at that point, they didn't have all this PowerPoint. Everything was on what do you call those things?
Yeah, I know what it's
an overhead projector.
Right.
He had an overhead projector and was always right. And I said, you love that because it's so educational. It'll just give you all that, and he was like, I will see about that. Anyway, I got Bob a Bible. I said, and we went and he never turned back. And that pastor was great. It's Pastor Rick Elzinga. And, I had been also in house churches, home churches. Bob wouldn't go except for potlucks. So he came to a potluck and he met all these believers from this church that were amazing people.
And they're good people.
They were intelligent because, the media had portrayed Christians as idiots and very bigoted and and these were amazing, kind, loving, caring, great families, great husbands, very not judgmental.
Nothing like what the media portrays.
And Bob was like, wow, I like these people. Do you know what I mean? I really like these people and I want to hang out with these people. And so then, he got involved in that and then he started coming to church and then Bob said to me one day, we have to be baptized.
Oh, and your heart must have sang.
Yes.
Oh.
But there was a point where, he had been coming for a while and I just said, oh, here's what happened. So, his deal was, he had been pre-med in college.
Right. You said that.
And so, all the teaching is about evolution and it's just the way it's taught. And he just couldn't get over that. So he asked Pastor to come over, Pastor Elzinga, and he was very respectful of our time. Like he arrived at 6, left at 7, boom. And Bob was saying, well, what about this? And Pastor Rick just said, all I know is the Bible. And this is what the Bible says.
Answered every one of his questions.
Just answered every one of his questions right from the Bible. And then Bob asked about Mary. And he goes, well, Mary said, this is my Lord. And this, so he answered those questions because coming from a Catholic background.
You need those questions answered.
And all he did was point to Scripture and point to God. And he totally never missed the message of you are loved and you are rescued. You are. And, Bob had a background with God, but I don't think the personal piece wasn't there. How God wants you. He loves you and he wants your heart. He doesn't want your works. And anyway, at one point then I said to Bob, what have you made a decision? And he was so mad because he was convicted. And, he's never a mad person. He's very mellow, like mellow. He was so mad he put his foot in the wall. And then I left. And then I came back and he had fixed it and plastered it and put wallpaper over it. And so it was all fixed. He goes, I'm so sorry. And I said, I just wanted to know that we'll be together for eternity. And he said, oh. And that's when he said, we have to be baptized. So then we were. And really, he's just grown hugely. He's
a godly man.
Very, and he just loves the word. And,
yes, he does.
Yeah. So God got a hold of him. But that was, oh goodness, it was like 10 years later, So Chris was like, I think 8. So we'd been married. Yeah. So that was like, it took a while, but God, and I knew God would do it. And, and everybody that I was with in those house churches and they were praying for him, kept inviting him, you know, like there were always golf things. He'd go to those.
Because he loves golf.
He loves golf. And so, I mean, you know, but anyway, so bottom line is God got a hold of him. And then I have to tell you one thing that was so fun in our marriage.
Okay.
So so when I was a senior in high school, I was an exchange student in Germany.
Okay.
And so I went to Munich, and then we traveled all over southern Germany, and I never really got to the north yet. Anyway, so I had made contacts, and they asked me to come back and be a translator.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went after high school, and I worked in Germany and was a translator, and met more people and just more. And I mean, I just fell in love with Germany. And so Bob knew this. And I said, I have got to, before Chris was born, I said, we have got to go to Germany because that is my second identity. Christian, German. Even though I don't have any German blood, I'm Norwegian, Swedish.
You're Norwegian.
Yeah,
but they're close. They're related.
They are. They're Northern Aryan, right? That's what.
So you had to go
I
there.
took him, and I said, so I was still working then, so I bought us tickets. I had gotten a scholarship from the German government to study over there, and I said, well, I'm taking it, and you're coming, and we took my mom with us because Mom had never really been out of the Dakotas, and my dad had passed, and she was just, you know, and Mom was like a kindergartner, you know, this one. Mom was like that. Everything she just wanted.
Just loved it.
Yeah. Anyway, and my mom loved Bob just to the, you know, she just thought he was amazing, and he really got along well with her too. So bottom line is, I took him over there, and he just fell in love with Germany too. So, and everywhere we went, he got a free schnapps because I was expecting, and they always called him Wolfgang. Yeah. It was so much fun. And then you know, we just went all over. Where I had worked and where I had studied. And then we went up north because my mom always heard about where this grandma was from, but had never been there, to Norway and Sweden. So we went up north, and, you know, we never made plans. God just provided, always. Like, we'd drive up, the ferry was there. Oh, drive on, let's go across. And then, oh, let's just, you know, it's like we had no problems. And, you know, today people plan out every day. We didn't plan it.
You're not a planner.
No.
You're not a planner. No,
and
you're not.
Everything. We never knew where we were staying.
No.
So we just always looked for, they would put, in those days, they'd say Zimmer frei, which means free room. And we just walk up, knock on the door. Is your room
Which
available?
you can do when there's no kids involved.
Yes, exactly. Yes. But anyway, so we did that all over Norway, Sweden with Mom. And, you know, so we got to see all those great places together. And that was a really good, you know, I mean, we love traveling together, so it's a lot of fun. Anyway,
all right, so this has been a delight. I have one last quick question.
Okay, I'm not paying attention.
Yeah. What is one thing that gives you joy? I know it's your kids, but besides your kids and your grandkids, what's one thing that you do that you go, it just makes my soul happy?
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm a big gardener. I love gardening. And you know what? I really think God communicates to us all the time through plants, through nature. And I mean, like, every detail is just amazing. And all you can do is look at it and go, God made that.
So you love your backyard.
Yeah. I mean, anywhere in nature.
Just anywhere to be in nature.
Outside. Yeah, just.
In your death marches.
Yes. That came
your
from
long
Katie.
walks
Yes,
that your
Bob will
husband
go.
and your and your kids call death marches, but all of those, and just gardening and plants. You have an amazingly wonderful backyard.
Well, I just love it. I mean, you know, and it's just an experiment, you know, and I'm always moving things around, and I have a whole bunch of things dug up I'm going to bring to the church and plant.
Okay.
Because that's, you know,
and there's some plants right outside my window. These blooming.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're called.
I know. I say, yeah. But and my daughters do this too, and my son. All my kids love to garden, and they love to cook from Bob. Bob's an amazing.
Because Bob's a major cook.
Yeah. So, and the kids both have gotten into that.
Because you're not a cook.
No.
No.
If I can just warm it up, I'm fine.
You work the microwave.
I do. I work the microwave.
All right.
Anyway, it's been a pleasure.
It has.
Yeah. And you were an amazing pastor. Honestly, the first day I came in here, yes.
Okay. We were over there at the Grange Hall.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I love how you love scripture and love the word, and it just makes it come alive. It really does.
Well, as you said just before we walked in here, it is such a delight to have good people, and you're part of the good
Yes.
people that I get to work with every day.
Igualmente, back at you.
And
Yeah.
you bring a joy, a smile on my face every time I see you.
Same here. Same here. Okay, we're blessed.
We are blessed. So
Yes,
thank you for visiting me.
Yeah,
and
of course.
and if you guys have any questions for Terri, on
I never looked at the thing. I
yeah,
wasn't
there's
sure.
the camera.
Oh,
up
there it is.
Yeah,
I
see the
was looking at.
Yeah, no, that just tells us what we're seeing, but that's the camera right
Oh,
there. Yeah.
okay.
Maybe I'll need to point that out the next people.
Whatever. I just kind of looked at you and then looking down here.
Right. So, anyways,
Anyway.
if you guys have any questions for Terri,
If
write them in the
anybody wants
comments.
to learn German or Spanish or sing some German or Spanish songs.
Oh, you
there
love
go.
that. Yeah, we
I
were singing
do.
those at Christmas time. You were singing Silent Night in
I know
German.
it.
It's like,
And those were all originally in German.
I know.
There's such a great heritage there. Anyway, fun times.
What a joy. Thank you guys. We'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Bye.